Hello, I'm Natalie Fee. I am the founder of City to Sea and I'm an author, environmental campaigner. And my book, How to Save the World for Free, came out last October. So I am speaking to you online today instead of in person at the London Climate Change Festival. I was going to be opening with a Horizon talk today, but things have changed, obviously. So I'm talking to you from a bedroom in my house. And I'm not sure how much of the presentation you can see with me on the screen too, but I thought it was important that I was here rather than just the slides. So a very warm welcome to you, and I hope you get a lot from this presentation, and I'm available online if you've got any questions to ask me after. So my presentation is called How to Save the World for Free. Now then, let's see what happens when I click. Great, it's working. So last year I turned 40, and it wasn't really the kind of year that when people look back on their 40th year, quite often it's one of celebration. And actually for me, it didn't really turn out that way. And I discovered that I'd been conned. I'd been told all my life that life begins at 40. However, when I got to my 40th year, that year I had discovered through the IPCC report that came out that we had at that point 12 years to avoid irreversible ecological collapse from climate breakdown. And then later that year, I heard that just in my lifetime, we had lost half the world's wildlife. And that statistic completely floored me. I could not believe that we'd been so careless as to lose half the world's wildlife just in my lifetime. And I thought, well, what does that mean for when I'm 80? What does that mean for my children? If I'm lucky enough to have grandchildren, what does that mean for them? So I decided at that point that I would do something about it. And I was already a plastics campaigner running my organisation City to Sea. But I felt like it was time to shift the dial and start talking about other things as well. So I made a vow at that point that whenever I had a microphone in front of me, or in this case, an online audience, I would use that time to share not just the urgency and the scale of the situation that we're facing, but hopefully some of the solutions. And I decided to write a book as well at that point. I love writing. My team at City to Sea are fantastic. Our CEO is running the organisation, and I took a little bit of time, well, Fridays and weekends, to write my book. And I felt like I could take this army of plastic campaigners on a journey and start talking to them about the other things that we can do in our lives beyond plastic, but including plastic, to lighten our load on planet Earth. So just winding things back a little bit, I haven't always been a lover of the sea. I'll tell you why, but I was, as you can see, very much a lover of Kylie Minogue and Jason Donovan. And I had a very special affinity and love for nature. We had a garden growing up, and I used to love spending my time out there. And I always had a sense that there was more to nature than meets the eye, and that we could develop a two-way relationship with it. But despite being an absolute tree hugger from birth, I was completely terrified of the sea. So I really, really didn't like going in it or on it or over it. And so it's quite funny that I ended up becoming an environmental campaigner focused on protecting the oceans. So how did that come about? Well, for me, it was seeing these images, the images of the albatross chicks on the Midway Islands in the middle of the Pacific, thousands of miles away from any major landmass, back in 2013, 2014. And the artist Chris Jordan created this incredible trailer at the time for a film called Midway, now called Albatross. And it depicted in the most beautiful yet painful way the suffering of these incredible albatross chicks. And I think for me, it was the first time that I really felt the grief around environmental degradation and seeing the harm that we were causing these incredible, beautiful chicks with plastic that could have been mine. I didn't know that it wasn't mine. So at that point, I decided I had to do something about plastic. I was working in telly and media at the time, but this for me was my wake-up call. And I decided, as everyone does, you know, you want to change the world, you write a song, and you do a music video. So for me, that was just sort of my first step. I didn't really know where to begin, so I thought, well, I've written a song recently, and I think the video, the lyrics weren't about plastic. That would probably have been a bit lame, but I thought that the video could be about plastic, and that might make a difference in the world. So I got that off the ground. It didn't really make a huge difference in the world. So I went on from there, took the momentum and the supporters I had, and I set up City to Sea, which is a community interest company. So that's a not-for-profit that focuses on stopping plastic pollution at source. So we started that in 2015 and started with the refill campaign, and which I'll talk to you about in just a moment. And it's just kind of grown from there. We're now a team of about between 32 and 34 people based in Bristol, running international campaigns, stopping hundreds of tons of plastic each year at source. So we started off with the cotton bud. We're behind the campaign called Switch the Stick. So back in 2016, I was seeing loads of these things all along the riverbank in Bristol. Any beach I went to, hundreds of these cotton bud sticks. So we ran our campaign called Switch the Stick. We got all 9 major UK retailers to stop making cotton buds out of plastic and to make them out of paper instead. And that move stopped over 400 tons of non-recyclable single-use plastic at source every year. Now that just gave me a taste of, actually people can make a difference. Individuals can change the world. Obviously I wasn't doing it on my own. I had Michelle working with me, taking great photos and creating great content with me. We had 160,000 of you that signed the petition, and it was absolutely fantastic. But it just went to show me that actually we could use our power as customers of these big retailers to actually influence them and tell them what we wanted, what changes we wanted to see. From that, we also went on then to do more work around other plastics that are flushed down the toilet, such as the hidden plastic in period products. So we launched our Plastic Free Periods campaign back in 2017, started with a video which had over 3 million views, which you can see on our City to Sea's Facebook page if you want to share that and watch it. It's fantastic. It's a silly, fun, informative video about the hidden plastic in period products and just how much of them we are flushing down the toilet every day. It really is quite extraordinary. So from there we went on to champion reusables and really educate and inform people about the variety of reusable menstrual products that there are. I'm not sure if I've got a slide for that now. I'll keep talking about that for a moment. So things like washable pads, period pants, menstrual cups, even reusable applicators. And it was a really fantastic thing to start that conversation or join that conversation and really boost that conversation out into the world. That's gone on to be a really successful campaign. We collaborate with the Women's Environmental Network and the Environmental Coalition, and together we're seeing some fantastic changes coming about across the world. We also have a free education program called Rethink Periods. So if you're a teacher or if you know teachers, then obviously at the moment we're not going to be going into schools directly, but you can certainly register your interest, and maybe we'll even take those courses online as well further down the line. So that's called Rethink Periods and is on the City to Sea website. So our refill campaign is the other thing that we're known for and has become a really successful campaign to get people off of the plastic bottle and carrying a reusable water bottle around with them and feeling comfortable about going into shops and cafes and getting a free refill. Our app has had over 270,000 downloads. If you haven't seen the Refill app, now's a great time to download it. Obviously, a lot of shops and cafes at the moment aren't open, so you won't be going into shops to refill, but get it there for when the future, when things settle down and we can get out refilling again. We're also going to be using the Refill app. We're expanding it to show you where you can refill other household products, your coffee and your lunchbox on the go, but also show you where your nearest zero waste shops are. We're postponing National Refill Day this year. It was on the 19th of June, but that's just been a fantastic example of how we've really been able to spread the message of refilling, working with National Rail, working with airports, and getting more water fountains installed as well. So, as we know, the plastic pollution problem is everywhere, and that's sort of been a big part of my life for the last 4 years, growing City to Sea and working with the team there, and really sort of being part of that huge tidal wave of action really that's really helped us shift the dial on plastic pollution. So moving on to my book now, at the beginning of my book, How to Save the World for Free, I talk about the 7 things that we need to save. So things like climate, soil, ice, rivers and ice, oceans, forests, biodiversity, and us. So the first sort of fifth of the book is quite heavy going. Obviously, I needed to research all of what's going wrong in the world to be able to bring you, hopefully, those pearls and the headlines of what you need to know. So the first fifth of the book is about that, and then it goes into all the solutions, how to save the world when you eat, when you vote, when you bank, when you play, even when you have sex. So there's hundreds of tips in that. I thought I'd just share some of the headlines with you here. Some of the stats I'm going to share with you now are quite heavy as well, but I think it's important to just be aware of what's going on and what's going wrong in the world, as well as what we can do about it. So our forests, we've only got 20% left of the world's ancient forests. So we've managed to destroy 80% of them. And here in the UK, we've only got 2% of our ancient woodland left. So it's very important to restore our forests and to fiercely protect what is left. One way, or 3 ways that you can do that, is eating less meat. Now, some of these cross over, because obviously eating less meat also reduces carbon emissions, so that helps climate as well. But in terms of deforestation, the meat and dairy industry has been one of the biggest reasons that we have deforested the vast part of the Earth's forests. Now, that's for creating grazing land for cattle, but it's also been to grow things like soya and corn to feed the animals. So eating less meat is one thing that you can do. I generally don't say go vegan or vegetarian. If you want to, if that feels like the right choice for your body, fantastic. Otherwise, just radically cut back the amount of meat that you eat and switch to a predominantly plant-based diet. Avoiding palm oil, again, if you can, avoid palm oil. It's quite easy to avoid. You do have to just read the labels though, but that's responsible for large swathes of deforestation in Indonesia. Making sure your toilet paper is recycled. How apt at the moment. I don't really know if we're going to have the choice at the moment of what kind of toilet paper we can or can't buy, given the current panics around whether we're going to have enough toilet roll. I think we'll survive, and we'll probably learn how to wipe our bottoms in other ways if needed. However, if you can choosing a recycled toilet paper is really important and a really simple thing that we can do. Believe it or not, virgin forests around the world are still being destroyed to make toilet roll, which is just not okay. So check, even FSC is obviously better, but if you can, check to get your toilet paper recycled. EcoLeaf in the UK is the best. It's recycled British paper that's turned into toilet roll, and so it doesn't have to be exported or flown around the world. Okay, on to climate. Now, you probably are aware through the IPCC report that scientists have predicted that we're on a trajectory for a 1.5 degrees rise in global temperatures by the end of the century, and that we need to keep global emissions within that range. However, most climate scientists agree that we are more likely on a trajectory of 4 degrees, and this is going to result in increased global temperatures, raging wildfires, increased sea level rises, mass climate migration, food shortages. So all the things we're kind of seeing already, but on a much greater scale. So it is serious. There's a lot we can do to still mitigate those effects. I'm going to share some of those with you now. So the top 3 things that we can be doing as individuals. Obviously, there's a lot that we need our government to be doing and our corporations, but as individuals, to power the change, we all need to be flying less. Now, obviously, this year in 2020, we're going to be seeing probably the biggest reduction in flights the world's ever seen, due to the coronavirus and the travel restrictions. So we're already seeing pollution levels lifting around the world. But this is something that we do need to try and maintain as we go forward. We emerge from the current crisis, that we do look at our flying and we see, well, can we do that a different way? Could we go by train? Could we have a staycation? Do I really need to take that business flight to have a meeting for a few hours? So I think switching to video conferencing and things like that is a good thing in terms of minimizing travel through flying. Switching to a green energy provider. If you've got a bit of time and you're at home at the moment and you're in a position to do so, then do take this time to switch to a green energy supplier. The ones I would recommend are Ecotricity and Good Energy. There's also the Green Energy UK. They are slightly more expensive, so if you are on a budget, switching to Octopus is sort of the next best option. So opting for an ethical pension, again, if you've got a bit of time on your hands at the moment, you can speak to your employer, see what kind of pension you've got. If it's a Nest pension, you can log into your dashboard. Nest is the sort of standard government pension. You can log into your Nest dashboard and you can switch to an ethical fund. So that's something that you might be able to do. Otherwise, speak to your employer and ask them, is your pension ethical? And if it's not, then there's an action they can take. So our oceans and seas. Now we know there's more going wrong in the oceans than plastic pollution. We are seeing our oceans are becoming increasingly acidic because of the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere, and our oceans are sequestering and sucking up that CO2 to the point that they are becoming overly acidic, which is affecting coral, and we're seeing coral bleaching. It's affecting crustaceans forming their shells. We are seeing overfishing, decimating still entire populations and ecosystems, and the methods of fishing as well are very brutal and damaging for ecosystems. In terms of meat and dairy and sewage and fertilizer from those industries, washing down rivers and into seas, that over-nutrifies the oceans, especially around the estuaries where that is coming down the rivers. And that forms sort of oxygen-starved dead zones in the sea where nothing can live, no plants or animals can thrive. It's pretty bleak. There's more, but I think I'll leave it there. Obviously, seawater as well is ice water is melting as well, so our seawater is becoming less salty. So, what can we do about that? Keeping it simple in terms of what you can do at home. Make sure you only flush the 3 Ps, pee, paper and poo, go down the loo, nothing else. Put anything else in the bin. Obviously recycle what you can, but for things like wipes and menstrual products, if you're using disposables, put those in a bin. Eat a lot less fish. Fish-free February is a great thing to sign up to next year. If you're eating fish, really try and check the provenance of it. Buy it from a local fishmonger and ask them where it's come from. Beware of farmed salmon. It's devastating for wild salmon populations, and also really unhealthy for the environment as well. If you're able to, then you can support ocean pollution fighting organisations like City to Sea, but there are plenty others out there if you feel like you'd like to help them make a difference. So our soil always gets left to last. I really need to move it further on in my presentation. Our soil is also under a lot of stress. In the last 150 years, we've lost half of the Earth's topsoil. It is also, well, that's down to intensive agriculture processes and the way that we've been heavily farming the soil. Now, it takes 100 years for a centimetre of topsoil to come back. So we really need to be protecting our soil. According to scientists, we've only got 60 years of harvest left. So, so it's very important that we protect our soil. How can we do that? Well, we can make sure, if we can, that we are buying organic. Organic farming protects the soil. It nurtures the soil. It builds the soil. So wherever you can, buy organic food. You could buy that locally from a local community supported agriculture scheme or CSA scheme, or sign up for an organic veg box, which of course at the moment lots of people are opting for home delivery. So now might be the chance that you can switch to an organic veg box. Also, when you're washing your clothes, just beware of microfibres, synthetic and nylon clothes, shed small plastic fibres. So if you are washing nylon clothes, then try and wash them less frequently, wash them on a lower temperature and have a lower spin cycle. And those are ways that you can reduce the amount of microfibres that are released out into our rivers and seas, but also end up in our sewage system, where that fertilizer then gets put onto our soil. So we're seeing a lot of microfibres ending up on our soil as a result of that. Okay, that's probably quite a few things that you can do already. Hopefully there are some new ones in there for you. and maybe there are some things that you think other people would benefit from, and you're welcome to share this with them. So I decided, if I have the good health and ability to do so, I'd like to spend the next 40 years of my life doing whatever I can to restore and protect this beautiful planet that we live on. And I'm not alone. You're here. Millions of us are here, rising up, getting our voices heard. There's the Youth Climate Strike movement, Fridays for Future. There is movements like Extinction Rebellion and climate marches all around the world, that people are being seen, making their voices heard, and letting our governments and corporations know that we need change and we want change. And we're prepared to risk our time and in some cases our freedom for that to happen. I think as well, if you are working within a business, just actually creating space for nature at the table, really making nature one of your stakeholders, one of your most prominent board members. These are ways that we can remind ourselves to hold nature in that circle of care. And I believe that when we hold nature like that, that we are actually reminded then to factor nature into our decisions. I also like to show people that there is a better way, and it's way more fun. So if you discover, for example, like this, how fun it is to carry reusable shopping bags, then tell people about it. Share the positive messages. If you make a switch and that thing is better than the thing you were doing before, like say you start using a menstrual cup and it completely revolutionizes your period and you just absolutely love it and you can't believe you haven't been using it for years, tell people about it. Encourage people and tell them what a great thing it is, how much money you're saving, how much easier it is to be out and about when you've got your period and you've got a menstrual cup. Things like that. Share those good stories with people, because that's a great way to bring people on board with positive changes. For example, going on a cycling holiday is so much fun. You get fit, you get to travel along at the same speed of the bees, you get let off the ferry first, things like that. That's sharing positive news stories about alternatives to flying. Switching to an ethical bank makes you feel more joyous because you know that your money isn't funding planet-destroying activities. And in the book, I even talk about having climate neutral orgasms. Who knew? Who even knew that was a thing? Well, I made it up, but I justify it in the book. It was a fun chapter to write. I hope you enjoy that one. So finally, I want you to all really just remember that as individuals, we can make a difference. I think quite often it says, oh, it's not about individual action, it's about system change, but it's about both. We need to make those changes ourselves. We need to bring our governments and our corporations on board with that and push for those changes. And at the same time, they also need to show leadership and action and take those big changes. So if you're able, if you're in the privileged position where you can make changes and be the change, then do it. Also connecting with your communities. I mean, now is never a more important time to be doing that. And we're seeing some incredible stories right from my street here who are absolutely amazing, supporting each other all the way across the country. So you can print out leaflets, drop them through your neighbour's door, start a WhatsApp group and form that level of local resilience, because that is what's going to carry us through not just these difficult times around coronavirus, but also it's going to carry us through the future when we need to become more resilient with the impact of climate change. So I think that's about enough from me. If you'd like hundreds more tips and a good read at the moment, if you're staying home, then do get a copy of my book, How to Save the World for Free. You can get a copy online. And if you have any questions from this talk or you just want to get in touch with me, here are my details. So you can drop me an email, you can get in touch with me on Twitter at Natalie Fee or Instagram at Natalie Fee _. And if you want to spend some time familiarising yourself with City to Sea's videos and sharing some informative and fun content across your social media channels over the coming months, please follow City to See, go and have a look at them on Facebook, find us on Instagram and be part of the movement. Well, thanks for watching, take care, and I hope to see you all in person one day. Bye, take care.